started soon, but yeah, I am thrilled to see you, and I am thrilled to be seen by you, and very excited for our hero uh, time together to claim and reclaim and introduce and reintroduce ourselves to ourselves. So I'm really thrilled about tonight and humbled and excited, and I will say more about how where I am in this moment and what it means for me. So I'm really excited. I'm just going to give people a minute or two, maybe not even that much longer, um, and we will get started. What I'd love is as we're waiting for people to join, if you might just put in the chat where you're from, where in the world or the country. When someone says, "Where in the world are you?" That's literal. Where in the world are you tonight? I'm in Philadelphia. That's home for me. So I'm uh, here on the East Coast, and I know people are joining from all over. So if you're feeling so inclined to say where you are, I'd love to hear that. And just a bit, and I'll repeat this again. I see. Oh, St. Petersburg, Florida. That's terrific. Yeah, I think what's beautiful about our time together, and this is Desiree from the Bronx, New York. Terrific. It's such a reminder. And Lexington, Kentucky. This is fantastic. I mean, I'm already like, I'm supposed to like probably stay in my seat, which I don't like doing. Um, and from Maryland, um, oh, go Eagles. Yes. I mean, uh, but what I love about this is we are Michigan and Boston, Massachusetts, and we're a reminder um, that this is really what this moment is about, that we are here together and together to reclaim ourselves, to bear witness to other people doing the same thing from all around the country. And what a powerful example it is. I think, particularly in this moment in this country, that many of us know how to be connected, regardless of other things that might disconnect or we might see the world differently. But this hero um, declaration and is something that we can all share, all be a part of. Um, yes, this is great. I think what we're going to do is get started. Um, and with who's here, and it's kind of like a family dinner when, you're hanging out and Aunt so and so is going to show up and we wait. But in this moment, we're going to let Aunt so and so show up and we're going to just dig in. I want to, so first of all, thank you so much for being here and for showing up for this Q&A, for how to be your own hero, for joining what I consider to be a movement, and a movement that is in many ways long overdue. We've made, and when I say we, people, uh, therapists and ministers and the who's who in the world have made it very difficult for us to realize that there really is no one special in terms of that you need to claim your own power and your own joy. And that is, to me, one of the biggest secrets. And we're going to talk about that. And I want to hear, of course, from you, because that's what this is about. This is not that I won't talk and won't share and won't, um, really weigh in, but I want to make this a safe space. This is the, Q&A. It's the question and answering for you. And it's not only what I know, but this is what I really believe that, and not that this is therapy, but I think what therapy really is, what a therapeutic moment is, it's being able to overhear the conversation that you've been having with yourself, maybe all of your life, and not feeling that it was safe. Maybe you didn't feel safe to yourself. Maybe the environment didn't feel safe. And so, my desire tonight is that we, as this village, create safety where there is no shame and no blame. I call those the toxic twins. And different people who signed up for How to Be Your Own Hero are at different places in the workbook. Some of you may have gone through the whole thing. Some of you may have looked at part of it, and some of you may not have had a chance to get into those 14 chapters. So we're in very different places, and we're going to start where you are. So let me say something about How to Be Your Own Hero, where it came from, the origin of it, really was me. I was looking for someone to rescue me. Oh, I wanted someone so much. Someone, I don't know who that someone was going to be, but there were times in my life where it was a love interest. Um, Parents when I was younger, maybe not so young, um, and or a boss at work. I mean, I wanted someone to see my good-heartedness, and I wanted someone to see my exhaustion. I don't know for you, but and we have men and women who are a part of this community. But I've watched women in particular weary, really tired, and tired physically, emotionally, um, spiritually, and just longing for someone to tell them to sit down. It's like, doesn't my mother see that I'm exhausted? Doesn't my boss see that I come in and I'm in here before she arrives and I'm in here when she leaves? Like, she knows I have children. She knows I have, elderly parents. I mean, like, she says good night to me. She says good morning when she comes in. So it means I greet her, my manager, and I say good night to her. And she never says, like, what are you doing here? You were here when I came in and you're here when I'm leaving. Go home. So, how to be your own hero is about how do you learn to tell yourself to go home? How do you learn without judgment to tell yourself, I'm tired, I'm thirsty, I need something, I deserve something for myself? I remember my mother saying to me that my father had died, and this was years later, about planting flowers at the grave. And I bought all of these beautiful flowers. And it was very hot that summer in Philadelphia, and I wasn't moving fast enough for my mother. So she says to me, which was interesting, she said, honey, I knew something was coming when she said, honey. She said, honey, it's really hot, and maybe if you're so busy, I can go plant the flowers at Daddy's grave. And I said, okay. I said, and I think you should get your hair done and get really dressed beautifully. And she looked at me like, why would she be getting dressed up and getting her hair done? And I said, because it is so hot and you are older, and it is quite likely. I said, I didn't know that you miss Daddy this way, because it's quite likely that you're not going to leave the cemetery. Like you're going to die there. And people are like, did you really say that to your mother? And I did, but let me tell you why. Because it was a manipulation on her part that I wasn't moving as quickly as she wanted me to move. And I want tonight for you to be thinking about what are the voices in your head and heart that sometimes have you doing things that are not good for you. And you are again waiting for someone to tell you to stop. So tonight is about becoming the good mother to yourself, the good father to yourself, the great boss to yourself, the hero to you. You can put your questions, any question. You can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand, your virtual hand. I'd love to hear directly from you, but whatever you're comfortable with is how we're going to share our time this evening. I do have a question that's already shown up, so let me start with that question, and then we can, again, if you have a question, I'd love to hear from you, what's on your heart, what's on your mind. So the first question I have, and this is interesting, I think how we form our entitlement to even ask a question. Do you feel the right tonight to ask what you want to know? So the first question says, as I'm getting started with how to be your own hero, I'm feeling nervous. And I don't know if anyone here is feeling nervous, but I'm feeling nervous about the changes that might take place. And I know that I need to, make movement, but I'm scared. Like, am I going to lose friendships? Am I going to want to stay married? Am I going to you know, be on this Zoom and then decide I don't want to work where I work? So it's a great question about, does becoming your own hero, will it harm the balance of your life? Are you going to find yourself giving up things that make you feel comfortable or people who you love? So I love the question. And let me say, first of all, the hero's journey, becoming your own hero, you do it at your own pace. All of this is at your own pace. And if you find yourself being frightened about anything, you can, in the moment, acknowledge to yourself, I feel afraid. Like this person who asked this question, they sent this question, a pre-question in. And how often do you find yourself scaring yourself about progress? And so it's an important point and question, and it's as important to know that this journey that you're on is not something that robs you of your power or robs you of your control. It actually gives it to you. And this isn't about, what someone else is doing or what they think you should be doing, but what really sits well with your own soul. So remember, what the goal of tonight is, that we can be quiet enough to begin to hear what is true for you, not what someone else feels is true, but what is your own truth about work? What is your own truth about family? What is your own truth that you want to explore? And how important it is that we can quiet that external world of judgment, of fear, because that's what that is. Will I lose everything? Will I give up more than I want to give up? And the answer is no. That you will pace yourself with the information. You will pace yourself with your power. and not scare yourself with your power. I know that I have one other question that came through that I want to answer. How much time do you feel, Dr. Robin, I should engage with this process, the material, the workbook? It's 14 chapters and 14 videos, and like, you know, I want to do the work. And so, how frequently should I be doing this? And that, again, it's a great question. How frequently do you feed yourself and drink what's good for you and drink water? So, what I mean by that is it doesn't mean that you need to be in the workbook every day. Some of you will choose to work on a particular chapter, and you may find that instead of just going through all 14 chapters and all of the assignments and the questions and the reflections, if you are like me, and you may not be, sometimes I find myself like something really speaks to me, and I may spend a week, I may spend a month in the same place because that's where I'm feeling drawn. That's where I'm trying to build my muscle, my emotional, spiritual, relational muscle. So there is, again, no right or wrong path or pace. It's really about what's working for you. Some of you have young children or older children, or you work, in a way that you don't have the same flexibility as someone else. So here we are, and I know I do this. I'm a jogger, a runner, and there are times we had some snow here recently, and I was out on the trail, and I saw some people jogging. I was walking, not jogging, and I was so aware that I was comparing myself. I was thinking, oh, maybe I should be running. Maybe I should be doing what they're doing. They seem to be okay. And I couldn't wait to come and share this with you because here I was pulled out of myself, looking around about what someone else is doing. And I say this with all due respect for all of us. It doesn't matter what someone else is doing. It matters what works for you. It doesn't matter if someone else goes through all 14 chapters and, good for them. And that might be fantastic, but that may not be your pace. So tonight, again, I invite you to find your pace and your voice and the hero in you who's waiting for you to acknowledge her, to acknowledge him. I mean, that's what this is about, not to acknowledge someone else's pace, but to acknowledge yours. So I want to open this up for your questions, and it's not just questions, Q&A, I mean, questions and answers. I know I have found that sometimes as I am looking for a answer, you can, or I can get the right answer to a wrong question. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if I'm asking myself, like, why do I always get it wrong? You'll see this in the workbook. Like, I mean, why do I like never meet the right person? Or I always find these jobs that suck. Um, must be me. Like, do I like pain? No, but that's not the right question because that's a question that sets you up for blame. It sets you up to look for what is missing in you. So I'd love tonight for us to think about what are the new questions? How do I form? And this is in the workbook. This is in the How to Be Your Own Hero workbook. What are the new questions that I haven't known to ask myself? What are the new questions that open up possibilities and opportunities, not shame and not blame, but that make me curious? You'll see in, if you haven't yet, you're going to hear me talk a lot, and I wrote a lot about curiosity. There's the old adage that curiosity killed the cat. I'm an animal lover, so I don't want anything that is harming animals if possible. Um, but curiosity, we haven't been taught, is a lifesaver. Not curiosity without uh, compassion, and not curiosity without accountability. But I'd love for us tonight to dance in our curiosity. How did I get to be who I am? How did I become judgmental and critical? Yeah, I see a question.
Desiree has a question, Dr. Robin, so I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, Licia, who is holding the fort down with me. So, and Marlene and Gina. So this is a village effort for sure. But Desiree, yes, please.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Robin and my fellow heroes. As I become my own hero, how do I begin to forgive myself for accepting and allowing someone to use me and take advantage of me when I knew better? Specifically speaking of a boyfriend. How do I forgive myself for allowing this when I
Yeah.
knew better? Thank you.
Yeah, Desiree, thank you for your courageous question. And I think a question that every human being, if we are honest and as brave as you, could ask ourselves, how did we land where we landed? Um, I would ask you to challenge something that you said, which is you said when you knew better. And sometimes when we've been hurt by, you know, a love interest or a family member or at work, we will, in hindsight, say that we knew better. I'm wondering, Desiree, whether or not you had to live through what you lived through to know what you know now.
I
What do
think
you,
so.
yeah. What do you,
Yes.
so do you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
isn't it kind of easy if I get a speeding ticket to say, like, I shouldn't have been speeding. I knew that was a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Well, I may have known it, but was I really thinking about it? Did I really understand that I could be pulled over and get points on my insurance and all those things that can happen? And so I think, in fairness to you, and part of the hero's journey, when you said, how do I forgive myself? Maybe the question is, how do I understand more deeply that I didn't actually know how to protect myself until now? And so
Yes,
maybe it's
ma'am.
not, yeah,
Yes.
so it's not really about forgiving yourself. It's about understanding I wasn't equipped the way I am now. I wish that I had been equipped. Oh, do I wish that? And that's what you're saying. I wish that I had been equipped, but if you can be compassionate with yourself, you'll find that there's more room for you to graciously grow into your knowledge. There's something about being unkind to ourselves, judging ourselves, that gets in the way of our power.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
You
Yes.
know? Yeah. And I will ask you this, just to be thinking about it for you and everyone who's gathered right now, is where is it that we are judging ourselves for being human, for being human, because as human beings, we end up both being hurt and hurting people. And I think there is a fantasy that we all have that we could have avoided some of what we simply could not have avoided because we didn't know better. Not yet. And so that's what we're doing. We're learning. And that's why compassion, self-compassion, it is the bedrock of transformation. It is the bedrock of whatever transformation you want in your life. I can tell you this, and this is something the research shows this, that people who judge themselves, people who are negative toward themselves, have a much harder time transforming whatever, mountain it is that they are trying to climb, because that negativity toward the self is what grows, not the grace toward the self. So self-compassion, and that's why I said about curiosity. Desiree, for you, for all of us who are here, who taught us either to judge ourselves harshly or who taught us to offer grace? It's a really important question for us to understand. Where did we learn? If we were trying to eat in a, healthier way and we fall off the wagon, if someone is trying to overcome an addiction and they beat the living life out of themselves, and they're like, I'm not going to take this from myself. Or if they're in a relationship, as you said, Desiree, what happens is the shaming of the self drains us of our power to transform. And that's why we have to be curious. Was anyone ever kind to me when I made a mistake? Did my mother or father or grandmother? Mr. Rogers talks about this, the Mr. Rogers, that his upbringing, there was some real toughness with his parents, but he had a grandmother. And Mr. Rogers' grandmother just got him as a child. She really got him. And that helped him become the Mr. Rogers that millions of children and adults found safety with, because he understood what it was like to be harsh and hard on himself, and he understood where it came from. So let's be curious tonight. Where did I learn what I learned? We don't have to be angry with our parents. We can be. That's okay too. Um, all of our feelings. That's the other thing, in the workbook and tonight. I want you to take away what has great meaning for you, but what I really want you to hold on to with your whole heart and life is that every feeling you have, every feeling, anger and sadness and joy and revenge, every feeling needs to be honored, deserves to be honored and explored, and curious about every feeling you have. So let's ask these new questions. How did I end up judging myself? Why am I so hard on myself? Where did I learn that? And the great news is, now that you're on this how to be your own hero journey, I can change it. Whatever happened to me at home, whatever happened in my upbringing and my school and at work, whatever happened, it's real and I have feelings about it. And as my own hero, I can do something about it now. I'm not powerless. I'm powerful. So if there's a question, again, you can raise your hand. You can go to the settings and um, you can lift your hand and I'll see that. We'll unmute you. If you want to put your question in the chat, there's no right or wrong. Um, this is just, and it doesn't, again, have to be a question. It can be something that you're discovering. This How to Be Your Own Hero is a journey of discovery. That waiting for Prince Charming, waiting for Princess Charming, waiting for the boss who says, go home. It's a discovery that you don't have to be on the sidelines anymore of your own life. You don't have to sit and wait. You don't have to have someone else care about your joy or your sorrow. You get to care first. And that's really, it's not just exciting, it will change your whole life. Your whole life. There is a in chapter 4, that's which is, I mean, I love every chapter, but chapter 4 specifically focuses on compassion, curiosity, and accountability. You may have already, that's the best kept secret chapter. And it's the best kept secret because if we have all been, our fairy tale stories, our movies, so much of what we see is pointing towards someone else who's going to rescue us. And so to me, the best kept secret is that the person you've been waiting for has already arrived. And he or she, they have been waiting for you to notice them. There's a poem, and I'll probably say it again, but it feels like the right time to share it. It's Love After Love. And in my book, Hungry, I have the whole poem in there. But it says, the time will come when with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. And I'll say the rest of the poem toward the end of our time together, but the hero's journey, how to be your own hero, is about loving again the stranger who was yourself, who is yourself, and what it means to not have to have a separate person who is your cheerleader, that you need the me, myself, and I. And that you might say, Dr. Robin, but I don't feel like enough. Well, that's part of what we are challenging with love, with compassion, with curiosity. Where did I learn? Who told me that I wasn't enough? Did everyone else go to college, or they went to a certain school, or they make a certain amount of money? Like, where did this lie? Chapter 3 is starve the lie and feed the truth. And I weave that throughout the 14 chapters. What's the lie that needs to be starved? What is it? I mean, can you, in this moment, think about what is it that needs to be starved so that you can begin with just bite-size pieces, baby steps to feed the truth. I don't know if you've heard, how do you eat an elephant? One small bite at a time. So how do you become your own hero? Baby steps. Because this is, that first question that I had that someone sent in, like, how much should I be doing? And, am I going to like turn my life upside down if I do this? And remember, I said this is about your pacing. That's part of being your own hero.
Dr. Robin, Camille has a question. She's wondering, do you have any biblical principles to go along with what we're learning tonight?
So I love the question. And before I respond, Camille, if you're willing to either put in the chat or just, come and let us hear you, but you don't have to. I'd love to hear about your question. I'd love to hear more about your question. Like, tell me, where's that coming from? And is there, are there biblical principles? And so if you're willing to say a little bit more, I I think that would be meaningful, maybe for the whole group, but certainly meaningful for me.
Okay. So, for me, whenever I'm going through any kind of trauma or anything that's not something I feel I could handle, I usually look in the Bible for
Hmm.
thing to offer some kind of advice or
Yeah.
compassion for me and how I look at other people. For example, the story of the town, what is it? Where the servant owed money and his
Hmm.
master forgave him. And I'm always looking for something to parallel how I'm feeling. Because I know if I'm constantly being upset with this person, I have to first remember that God forgave me. And even though this person hurt me, I have to find it within myself to forgive that person in order to heal. So usually I'm looking for something that will help ground me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And thank you you've said so much that I have many thoughts, which I can't give them all to you tonight, but I would love to respond to a couple of things. One about forgiveness, not that you asked about that, and I'm going to answer your question, which is actually in the workbook as well. Some biblical uh, grounding that might be meaningful for you. But I do want to say something about forgiveness. It's much easier said than done. Um, and forgiveness does not mean that we have to put ourselves back in harm's way.
No, no.
Yeah. So part of forgiveness is being able to have boundaries, which, in How to Be Your Own Hero, there's a lot where I'm talking about boundaries. How do I protect myself? How do I honor myself? How do I take myself seriously, even when someone else may not?
Mhm.
And so there is something very powerful about being able to see yourself as worthy, even if someone else does not. Even if when people don't get an apology, to know that you still deserved one. And so there's something, and this is really part of the journey of how to be your own hero, that a hero knows that they are deserving, that they are enough, even if others around them are behaving differently. And so it is important that you become your own, not just your own hero, but your own source of information and truth. What I will say to you is, and I talk about this story in the workbook. There is a story, a passage of scripture in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, and it talks about a shipwreck. And it says that there was a shipwreck, and some of the people who could swim well, they were able to swim to shore to be safe. They got themselves back. And this is the part of the story I love. It says other people got back on the broken pieces of the ship. And a piece of how to be your own hero is how to take the broken pieces of our lives, how to take the broken dreams, the things that we were, saw as discardable, as trash, or maybe that we were ashamed of. And to realize that in the broken pieces can actually be our flotation device, if you will, to safety. And safety meaning to come home to the self. I mean, I feel, the hero's journey and how to be your own hero is about coming home to yourself. I mean, coming home to your whole self. Holes, Holes. We all have holes. I mean, it's part of being a human being. We have holes. And we're all longing to be whole, WHOLE, which is a holy and HOLY journey. And so when we can claim our holes and our longing to be whole and our birthright, our divine birthright to be whole, that is a sacred and holy journey. So I love your question as well. There's in the Old Testament, I will also tell this story about David and Saul, and the king was Saul at the time, and he told David, I won these wars like wearing this armor. And here, take my armor and wear it so you can win too. And how many of us have had our mothers or fathers or grandparents or coworkers say, this worked for me. Do what I did. Well, sometimes that works, what someone else did, but many times we have to thank someone for telling us what worked for them. And then how to be your own hero. We have to come to what David did. And he kind of said, thanks for the offer, but those clothes don't fit me. And so the hero's journey, what we're doing here is finding your clothes. Camille for you, and Karen for you, and Desiree for you, for everyone who has joined. Custom clothes to come home to you. Yeah. So thank you for that question.
Dr. Robin, Rochelle has raised her hand for a question.
Yes. Rochelle, please. Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi. I do have a question. And I thank you so much, Dr. Robin. I really enjoy listening to all your work, especially on Urban View. It's wonderful what you do. The question I have is in chapter 2, you mentioned talking about like decluttering the internal space. And also you pose a question like who leaves you feeling drained, small, uncomfortable. My question is, how do you navigate the people in your life that's doing that without discarding those people? So this is, yeah.
No. Is there more? Say more.
No, it's just kind of I'm just trying to, articulate it, but it's like, okay, you can as we change, how do we navigate the people around us that are not changing without pushing them away or without discarding them and like leaving them or anything of that nature?
It's a beautiful question, a courageous question. So thank you, Rochelle. Part of that, when I talked about boundaries, the caller ID on our cell phones or uh, a text message that someone responds to immediately without asking what's the price? What happens when I take that call immediately? Particularly if I am drained, how do I protect my space? And your question, which goes even deeper, is as I'm growing, how do I not get rid of people who matter, but they're not necessarily doing their work? Now, you didn't say all of that, but that's what I heard. Yeah, so they're not doing the work you're doing. And what's interesting about that is sometimes we get to know more about ourselves when someone is not doing their work and we are doing ours. We get to see the part of us that can be judgmental. We get to see the part of us that wants someone to be something other than they are, which can be a distraction from what is it that I need to do for me. So, how do I surround myself with people who can fill my cup? How do I make space? How do I, like tonight, we've come here so that we could not just ask questions, but so we could fill ourselves, fill and feel. So FILL and FE, feel, I mean, both, to fill and to feel. And it is a opportunity when, and I know this because I've been practicing this work for a long time. As I said, I developed How to Be Your Own Hero to save my own life, to save my own sanity, to save my own joy, to find my own home within myself. And, there are people in my family, there are people, friends who I've been friends with for so long, who I love. Uh, and I also have boundaries about when I am with them and when I am not. So I think, Rochelle, the other piece about this is, do I feel that I need to explain to someone my change, my, that we're not hanging out as much, we're not talking as much? Do I need to say something about that to them? Sometimes. But the person who really needs to understand what I'm doing and why I am doing it differently is me. And do I have the right to change something because it is better for me? And that's an issue of your own, again, birthright. The question is, who taught me, if anyone did, that I owe someone else more than I owe me? Who taught me that? I remember I went to a Quaker school when I was growing up, and it hugely influential, and it taught me a lot about silence and good things, lots of good things. But there was a new student coming to the school, and I'd been there at that point for since I was 4, and I would have been at this point going into 7th grade. And I was assigned to be with this student. And, I think they picked me because she was shy and I was not, and that maybe I could help bridge that for her. And I'm really glad for that opportunity. But I've thought about it many times because I've thought about how people, we, you, me, often take something on because someone put it on us. And we want to be nice. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. You don't want to be mean to someone. But there's a second piece to this. Does anyone ever check in and say, is this good for you? Is this good for you? Might be good for someone else, a child or your girlfriend who wants to see you, or your husband or your wife, but is it good for you? And this is part of the work. Asking yourself, is this good for me? Do I have the right, and can I tolerate doing something that is good for me if it does not make someone else happy? Yes.
Dr. Robin, Denise has a question and she asks, the material suggests we find someone to share our reflections on the process. I am not led to share my journey because I have shared vulnerabilities with others and felt judged. Does this process prescribe a partner to journey with? I am sure it is good to have a trusted person, but are there times when we must go it alone?
Mm. And that's Denise, is that right? Yeah. Denise, thank you for that courageous question. So, usually, life gives us a both and response, not an either or. So, it's not that community is unimportant, because that's a place where we get to practice, and we get to practice in bite-size steps, taking small steps about creating safety with a person, or in this instance, you did take the risk, the courageous risk of putting your question in the chat. So there is something about you that is committed to your own work, because you could have just shown up and not said, hey, I need to understand something because I've been hurt and I've been disappointed by people. So how do I balance, Denise? I hear you saying community with going it alone. And what I would say is it is a balance, that we are not meant to make the journey of life alone. And we are meant to learn how to be alone and come home to ourselves in a way that we feel embraced and acknowledged and celebrated by the self, meaning you to you. Know that poem, it said again, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile. So you and you, Denise, will smile and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. So it is both. It's community, and it is cultivating an inner core that honors and loves yourself. Yeah. Yeah, but thank you for that question. That's an important one. So, is there, yeah, I thought I saw a hand. Maybe it was my hand. Okay, no? Okay. So if there, again, let's just remember, I mean, these are great questions and great challenges to, again, to the self, to me, to our community. And when you're asking something for yourself, I don't know, I think I just saw a new question come up. There's always someone who has the same question, a similar question. But yeah, Licia, what's our next question?
This is from Angela, and she says, in the chapter of Starve the Lie and Feed the Truth, how do we distinguish that the truth is really the truth and not something you learned or falsely believe?
Mm-hmm. Wow. you're talking about how do we know, and I think we're seeing so many examples everywhere of confusion. And that's really what you're talking about. How do I know that something is true? One of the ways that you can know that something is true, at least for you, is that it acknowledges your own worthiness. Anything that chips away at your soul, anything that tears you down, anything that strips you of your dignity is something that is not rooted in what is true. So abuse, when any kind of abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, financial abuse, they're rooted in lies. And how we know that is because abuse of anyone, including the abuse of the self, is something that a healthy, whole self would not do. It wouldn't do to you, and it would not do it to someone else. So I would also suggest that you will know that something is true when you are surrounded by people who honor the dignity of themselves and other people. So when you watch people tear other people down, you watch people gossip about other people, you watch meanness. The mean girls, the mean guys. I talk about mean girls and mean boys, mean people. No, and let us remember this. We all have mean in us. We all have mean in us because we're human, remember? And that's a part of the relief. The question is, can I see what is true about me? Can I be curious about what I see? Remember, compassion, curiosity, and accountability. So can I have self-compassion? Because if I see something about me, if I see that I'm mean, if I see that I'm harsh, if I see that I drop out of difficult conversations, if I judge myself for it, guess what? I'm not going to want to see it. We can't examine what we judge. Let's remember that. We cannot examine, you cannot, and I cannot examine what I criticize in me. That's why the curiosity it's a non-negotiable tool for liberation, for freedom, for health and wholeness and joy, for recovery of any sort. To be able to be curious, how did I become angry? Not mean to myself because I'm angry. If I'm angry, something happened. And I want to be curious, like what happened to me? How did I lose my voice? Or how did I become harsh? Because that's how we begin to make the repair. And so if we are only curious and compassionate, I could be kind of anemic, meaning I could have pity parties for myself. And again, I'm not against pity parties. We just have to have a time limit on them. We need them. We need to feel badly for ourselves when something's happening. It's just how long do I stay there? And if I'm accountable only, ooh, that can be mean. So we need this combination, this balance between self-compassion and accountability. And curiosity is the bridge. How did I become who I am? How did I swear off of love? How did I learn to never be without a mate or a partner? No judgment, just curiosity about what makes me me so that I can take what I learn and use it as the bridge to transform my life and to be your own hero. So if there are other questions, do I see in the chat? Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. So I'm curious. I have something just came. Um, I have a question for anyone who wants to put your response in the chat. What's this feeling like for you? What does this moment? I talk a lot in the workbook about the body. Our body never lies. It keeps the score. Tears are our teacher. When people start to cry sometimes and they will say, "Oh, excuse me." I'm like, "For what?" For being human. Our tears, whether we're happy or we're sad or we're scared or we're angry, our tears never lie and our bodies don't lie. So when your stomach is rumbling, and not because you ate too much or too little, but because you're nervous, when your palms are sweaty, your body's telling you something. And so I'm just wondering what tonight feels like. And I see a hand. Um, yes,
PD has raised his hand.
PD. Okay.
I'm okay. I was trying to come off mute. It's Patricia. I got to change my name. So
Listen,
good evening.
good evening, good evening, Patricia, MPD. This is about being whoever you want to be. That's part of being your own hero.
Okay, well, Patricia's my government name. Dr. Robin, first of all, cannot say how much I love you. And on Sundays, it's like church, then Dr. Robin. So the first part of my Sunday, it starts and ends with you. So I listen to you every Sunday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's how I ended up buying this course kind of at the last minute. So I haven't really got a chance to go through the material.
Okay.
But I wanted to respond to your question. This has been an amazing segment. And like I said, every Sunday you stretch me out. I'm like, she's in my face. So I love that. One of the things, in listening to you and doing these exercises is what I've learned and learning about myself is when I feel my nervous system is under attack, I am learning how to navigate that and dealing with people, because to the conversations that were mentioned earlier, for the people that aren't doing the work, they are just coming, with both guns loaded and a grenade, whereas we're becoming more self-aware. We're knowing how to bow out gracefully. So I thank you for the tools that are helping me not only stop trauma bonding, managing, my management of my nervous system when I feel that I'm being disrespected, taking care of myself. This class, talking to you, is an investment in the transformation and journey of finding myself, becoming more curious. Now you got me so curious. I'm going back to 7th grade. So I thank you for that. But, that was just some immediate reactions to your question. And someone else asked my question earlier. So that means everyone on this call, we're all in the same sphere. So, thank you for this. And even though it's not a lot of us, you're doing God's work. And we so appreciate this and what we can learn from you to just be better individuals and help break some of the cycles and curses because we weren't given the tools early on.
Yeah. Patricia, thank you. Patricia PD. I love that. So, thank you for showing up and for listening, meeting on Sundays, and for your heart, for what you just said about your central nervous system. It's people laugh at me because I say often, when something is not working for my central nervous system, I will say, this is not good. And it could be um, I mean, literally, my alarm, my house alarm,
Mhm.
years ago, I had the alarm would like the button, when you push
Mhm.
and then it
Mhm.
arms it.
Mhm.
It was in my bedroom and in different places in the house, and it was fine. And I
Mhm.
had no problem. Maybe 5 years, 6 years ago, all of a sudden, it was startling me. Not
Mm.
the alarm going off,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
setting it.
Oh, okay.
And it was, I'll tell you what I learned
Mhm.
is it wasn't necessarily just the setting it. It was if someone else did it and I was unprepared. So hear what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I I was startled. And for any of us, when we are startled by something,
Mhm.
we aren't prepared for it.
Yes.
So it could be something really exciting, it could be something scary, but being startled. So I asked my alarm company
Mhm.
to come and take the sound out of the one panel
Mhm.
in this one location. And it completely
Mhm.
changed how my body experienced this startled experience. So I was sitting somewhere else in my house just a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I heard the sound down the hall. And I thought, oh my gosh, how would I have ever lived
Mhm.
with that close to me? And the reason I love what you're saying is most of us, no matter
Mhm.
where we came from and,
Mhm.
you know, how we live and what we are doing with our lives,
Mhm.
we didn't hear about our central nervous system. We didn't hear anything. I mean, people
No.
may have said, um, my nerves. People
Right.
may have said,
Right.
I just feel like a little nervous, but not
Mhm.
understanding
Right.
that our central nervous system is everything.
Yes. Yes.
And energy, when someone will even say
Mhm.
they walked in a room and like I just didn't like their energy. And people are like, what do you mean energy? Like, what is that?
Mhm.
That's like weird,
Right. Right. Right.
energy. Well,
Mhm.
if you think about it,
Mhm.
well, we are energy. And so when someone comes in and they're warm
Mhm.
and they're smiling,
Mhm.
if we like that kind of affect, then we may enjoy that. If someone
Mhm.
comes in and they're frowning,
Mhm.
we may have a body experience, a visceral experience. And so I love
Mhm.
that you are reminding
Mhm.
all of us here
Mhm.
to pay attention to our bodies.
Oh yeah, definitely. And
Yes.
and I think everyone that when they think about it, when you have a bad experience with someone, your it's your nervous system that
Yes.
reacts a certain way. It might trigger you to say things that you don't mean because you go into defense mode because that's what our central, our nervous system, fight or flight. So I appreciate the tools that you are giving every Sunday in this session in the workbook that helps us find that balance, because most of the time, if you pay attention to people, everyone feels under attack. And we just need to take more magnesium and chill out. But it's so freeing, and I appreciate it. And I just really hope you know how much we appreciate you and all of your words and your work is just amazing. So I've been a fan of yours for so long. I was like, it's been about 30 years, Dr. Robin, since like Oprah Winfrey.
Well,
We
listen,
go
you're
back.
you're 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 dating me, but I'll
We
take it. I will.
listen, we go back, girlfriend.
Yeah. No, I'm honored by that and very, humbled as well. It's this is a new moment for
Mhm.
all of us
Yes.
to really take our lives seriously and our bodies and our health and our freedom and our peace. I tell
Yes.
in the workbook a story of, we could, and I've said this on TV and on radio, that
Hmm.
if we're having a great day and then someone cuts us off on the road and they give us the finger, and we were singing our favorite song, and then all of a sudden we get to work and we say, you know what, my day started so good,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like ruined. This person cut me off, they cursed at me, they gave me the finger, not a hello, but that other finger,
Right.
and I like my day is ruined.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important thing, because not that we aren't impacted, but how to be your own hero
Mm-hmm.
is about taking that power back so that
Yes.
the person on the road who has lost their mind doesn't take mine.
Right.
I always
Right.
say, whoever owns your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
owns you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whoever owns our thoughts
Mm-hmm.
owns us. And so I want to remind you and me
Mm-hmm.
and all of us who have gathered
Mm-hmm.
that we can make a decision. Some of you may, and if you don't know about it, I have an offering that's called Choose Differently. It's on the website. You can,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And
That's
so this,
wonderful.
I mean, really, this is about
Mm-hmm.
choosing differently, that
Mm-hmm.
because someone else is a jerk,
Yeah.
because someone else hates themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
now they want me to hate myself,
Mm-hmm.
although they don't
Mm-hmm.
know that they want me to hate myself. But
Right.
it's like, well, wait a minute. I can choose differently. I don't have to. And part of how to be your own hero, a
Mm-hmm.
huge part of it
Mm-hmm.
is inviting all of us to realize I have the power, and there are
Mm-hmm.
tools and
Mm-hmm.
skills
Mm-hmm.
that I can practice, and I can build a
Yes.
new information highway in my brain and body,
Yes.
that will not make me a mummy or make
Mm-hmm.
me someone who has no feelings,
Mm-hmm.
but my feelings aren't going to run my life.
Right. Right. And we're reprogramming ourselves. Like you said, transformation is
Absolutely.
huge. And these are tools, our parents didn't have. So,
Right.
the gratitude runs very deep for what you are teaching us to reprogram ourselves, to transform, to be our own hero. And
Yeah.
I've never been taught that. I've never been told those words. And it's about learning how to love yourself to take those steps. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't want to take up all the time, but I just wanted to let you
Thank,
know how much I appreciate the body of work that you've created.
thank you so much, Patricia. Yeah, I'm very honored and glad you're here. Glad you're here and part of the community.
No,
And we
thank you.
see, yeah,
Eh,
thank you. We see it. I see.
Oh, yes. So Angela has a comment, which I think you'll be able to speak to. Is she says, I'm finding the course powerful and challenging. I cried through much of the first several chapters, thanks to the curiosity I was asking about so much of my past.
Yeah. And Angela, thank you for sharing. Again, this is not just asking, it is the discovery, because that's what this is. We are discovering and recovering, really discovering and recovering parts of ourselves. Um, Patricia was just talking about seventh grade, and I was talking about, you know, being 4 years old and seventh grade, and, 17 years old and 47 years old. So, um, the crying, Angela, the tears,
Yeah.
it's so important, and I said a few moments ago that tears are our teacher, and they never lie.
Right.
They never lie.
True.
Yeah, they never
Yeah.
lie. Hello there, and I'm getting to see you. Thank you for, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So say more if you're comfortable and willing to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like the curiosity piece of it was, you know, just really powerful. And, as I was getting more and more curious, I was digging deeper and deeper, and it was getting harder and harder, but, it really did, shed some light on a lot of things. And, I was very grateful for it. But it's difficult work, and it's challenging, but it's very, liberating at the end,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for sharing and saying and showing, your story in that way. it is difficult. And what I say in the workbook, but I also say, which is more like a book, people are like, it's what? It's like 84 pages. I said, yeah, I know. It didn't start out that way. And then the next thing I know, and then I was like, oh, well,
Right.
here we go. But one of the things I will say about tears as well and difficulty is that we know how to suffer, Angela.
Yeah.
I knew how to suffer. Gosh, I
Right.
knew how to suffer.
Yeah.
It was how to be free that I had to learn.
Yeah.
I didn't know how. I mean, I had, parents who nurtured and loved me. I had a mother who was super smart and terrified of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't look like she was terrified because she was super smart and had language and all this, but her fear. And so it was, like sitting on me and in me. And um, I didn't know what to do. I just knew how to kind of be loyal
Right.
um, to everyone except me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was I had to figure out how to choose differently,
Right.
how to choose me.
Yeah.
And there's a story, it's not in the workbook, but in Hungary about a dog who was sitting on a porch, like a country store. And there was a man who would walk every day to the general store, and this dog would growl. And eventually the man asked the man who owned the dog, why does your dog growl every day? And the man called the dog, and, let's just call the dog, Frank. If there's a Frank, forgive me. And um, said, come here, Frank. And Frank got up, and there was a nail sticking out of the porch. And the dog got up, walked away from the nail, and then went back and laid back on the nail. And the man said, why would the dog do that? And his owner said, because it just doesn't hurt that bad. And not because it didn't hurt,
Mm.
but because we know how to suffer.
Right.
So when people say, about couples therapy or family therapy or this work, how to be your own hero, they're like, this is a lot of work. And I'm like, and so is suffering. We just know how to do it better because that's what we saw. It's
Right.
what our families did. It's what our culture has done. It is what our culture is still doing, depending upon where we've come from. I mean, so it's like a revolution. That's
Mm.
why I said this isn't about a, resolution. This is about an inner
Right.
revolution that I do know how to suffer, but this is not what I was born to do.
Mm. Right. And I didn't even know I was suffering, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it just becomes so natural that
Yes.
that's the way it is.
Yes.
Then when you really dig, you're like, okay, that was suffering,
Right.
Right.
Yes. Right. Right. That was suffering. And right. I want out.
Right. Yeah.
I want out. And I want in to me. I want into joy. And I don't know what that looks like. Um, I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Right.
But how to be your own hero. And one thing you're reminding me of is that this community that we have right now will be a community that continues to grow. And for everyone who bought in, this is yours forever, meaning we're going to update things and we're going to have additional offerings that are connected, and you can come back. And I mean, you don't have to pay again. I mean, this is, how to be your own hero. You are here and it is yours, and the workbook is yours. And when we update it, although my team told me that I better not touch that workbook anytime soon. They're like, don't you dare. Um, and I'm with them. But it's yours. Like, so even when it gets updated, the updates come to you and you'll be notified like that there's something new. We're gonna, I think, probably add an additional Q&A so that there can be more gatherings like this.
Yeah.
Those will also be part of. So we're thinking about, Angela, how to nurture you, how to nurture this moment, how to cultivate our time together so that we can continue to expand our freedom. And that's what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am, and tell me, where are you? What part of the,
I'm just outside of Boston.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just up 95. Yeah. From
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
the cold.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 What's it feel like, in this moment? I mean, how are you feeling and what's your body saying? And
I'm feeling very supported right now. Like, I feel like, this is a journey. I'm not here doing it alone. And, um, I'm more excited than nervous, say, so
yeah.
yeah, I feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm
Thank you.
doing it with, I mean, just know it's not like I wrote it and then I'm finished. I'm going to be doing this work
Right.
with you. Yeah. Because you know what's interesting? In one moment, one thing speaks to me. And I always talk about when people say, again, I'm over that. And I think to myself, well, okay, I'm over it for now because it depends what's going on in my life. It depends what's going on. This is why we have to protect our nervous system. It's why we have to protect social media and TV and, you know, political things. I mean, just to no matter how people on this call have voted and what you're thinking, I talk in this workbook that this is about overthrowing the government, not the government. And I said, don't anybody tell anybody that Dr. Robbins said, no, 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 not what's going on in Washington or in Boston or Philly or Kentucky or it's this government. It's the one that tries to tell me that there isn't more for me, that there isn't relief, that there isn't joy. So it's really, it is a revolution to own my thoughts and to realize that I can choose differently. I may not know how to, but now the tools that are in this workbook are there to help all of us continue to work on our freedom. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Robin, Karen has raised her hand.
Yes, yes, yes. Hi there.
Hi.
It's so good to have you
Um,
here.
Thank you. I'm just really trying to figure out how to um, articulate all of my thoughts here. I too am one that have listened to you for many, many years on the Oprah radio. In fact, um, one time praying to God, do I listen to Dr. Robin Smith or the counselors that my husband and I were going to? And
I remember.
yes.
Yes.
God's always been there in ways that you can't, not say that it was God guiding me. A year and a half ago, I did finally get out of that marriage with someone who eventually, even though all the counselors told me I could trust him, he was really trying. I got testing and he was antisocial features and bipolar and started to really go psychotic.
Mm.
So that was very stressful to go through that. But everybody kept telling me I was strong and I felt strong. So I guess the being my own hero, I feel like I've done that, but I am struggling probably for the last 6 months because my townhome, which was on the air coastal on Treasure Island, got flooded with the first hurricane. And then on the second hurricane, out of 10 units, mine was the only one that lost half of the roof.
Mm.
I'm tired. And I feel like I have to be my own hero because it's all falling on me now.
Yeah.
but I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And
yeah.
it's part of me, I'll be honest. I've always felt God there, but this feels like so much.
Yeah. And it is so much. Um, so thank you for being, and I mean that, for being here, but for being, period, just for showing up. And, Karen, as you're talking about being tired, a part of this how to be your own hero is that rest is also radical. It's needed. And part of what you're saying is, how do I rest
There's
when
so much to do.
right, when there's so much to do?
Insurance and so much.
Right. Yeah. So
We
how do I
build.
rest? Yeah. How do and I don't, not just sleep
Yeah.
rest, but the question I would have for you is, what did you learn in your life, meaning over this journey you've been in, and the courage it took for you to move away from a long-term marriage that you worked very hard to um, have, last. But I'm wondering what you've learned about taking care of yourself. What was the message? Are you allowed to take time off? Are you allowed to? And I don't mean weeks, because I understand that there are insurance companies and things, but I'm wondering, where is the room for ease and play? Who's in your life that you can nurture yourself with?
And I think I do a good job. I do have really good friends, and I
Okay.
have one that's even coming this weekend for 4 days. So I'm taking the time to do that also.
Because that's essential. Sometimes we think like, I'll do it later. And what I'm saying is, sometimes we can't, and I can't do what I need to do if I don't spend that time with my friend for those 4 days, or go for lunch, or take myself
Right.
out to do something. And so I'm glad that you are giving yourself that space, but I'm wondering if you recognize that it's not just important, it's essential.
Yes, and I think also, again, I can see where God provided. My son moved out a month before, so I can see where he went before me and provided. And when I look at things that I've learned, it again through the therapist, all believing a narcissist, I had to learn to really trust myself. So I'm really having to, I guess, be strong and really stand up for myself with insurance companies and
Mm-hmm.
HOA members, but
So
it is tiring. I mean,
of course it
well, I
is.
guess it's more well, maybe emotionally tiring.
It's
It's
both.
because trauma on top of trauma, the trauma of I just went through with a divorce, and then to put this trauma on top of it.
The word I was going to use, and trauma is one word, it's also, there are multiple deaths as well, meaning
Right.
they're not physical deaths, but a long-term marriage that ends by choosing differently. It's still a loss. So the word I'd like for you to hold and care for is that you're grieving. Tremendous grief. Just because we leave something and we know why we've left, whether it's a job, or it's a location, or it's a marriage, or a friendship, there's still grief. And I think sometimes we don't make room, and people don't make room. It's like, oh, you got rid of that awful boss. You're not with that in that bad relationship. It's like, well, yes, and there's ache, there's grief. And then you're talking about homes. I mean, hurricanes. I
And
mean,
I think probably the biggest thing for me is fear because we have mold issues. My youngest son had grand mal seizure, or my oldest one had grand mal seizures. He still has the mold in his body. So it's the fear of, will I get it cleaned out enough
Yeah.
to be able to go back? So I think fear is the thing that's really, rather
Yeah.
than having faith, I'm getting stuck in fear.
Well, I wouldn't maybe call it quite the way you did, because it could be, and I hear the fear part, but that also is wisdom. You have history. You have a
Right.
son who, I mean, so mold is very real. We know, again, much more about mold now than
Right.
we did before. So I don't know that you are living in fear as much as living in truth, the truth of what might be, and then what it might cost
Right.
and cause you to need to do. So, something I'd love to offer you in the midst of everything that you're sharing is that you can trust yourself. So that means that whether or not you move back or you don't, whether or not you choose, and this is really important because we can get very tied up with, I'm afraid. And it's like, well, yeah, but if I know that I'm going to listen, I'm going to really listen. I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to listen to my wisdom. I'm going to listen to the voices that supportive people, your friend who's coming, you're looking. I will be able to choose differently, whatever that means. And so we can't know what it means. We can just know that I will be able. I
Okay,
will be
so
able.
through everything I went through with counselor after counselor telling me I was wrong and I wasn't, and
Right.
got the proof that I wasn't, the journey for me has been to trust myself.
So here we are.
I'm still on that journey.
Well, and guess what? We all are somewhere on that journey, but knowing now that you are very consciously committed to being able to trust you, not someone else, not a therapist, not even me, that you can trust that when the truth lands in you, you know it. And so a part of having therapists tell you, he changed and whatever, that was all part of strengthening your muscle, that when something is off, you know it.
Right.
You know it.
Because what led me to see you in Atlanta was me asking and praying to God, do I trust everything I'm hearing from Dr. Robin Smith on the radio, or what the therapists were going to are telling me? Because what you were saying made sense and not what they were telling me.
Yeah. And let's just
And
remember,
then God provided you to be in Atlanta to validate, yes, trust that.
and just so that she manifested me. She was listening to me driving across the country, and we ended up being in the same hotel, and she had just heard me, and I mean, I had flown so it was one of those. And so the
It was
same way,
God giving me confirmation. Yes, this is who you trust.
yeah.
Be
Well,
myself to trust you,
and
not
this is
who you're
what,
going
right.
to.
And this, we want to bring it back to who was trustworthy was you. I mean, yes, you trusted me and I was wise and whatever.
But it's because what you were saying was resonating with me to be the truth, and what they were saying was not.
Right. And so that was true then is even more true now. And so I want you to walk in that truth. That's why we're here to starve the lie and feed the truth and not be distracted by the lies and whatever it is that had us kind of lose our way at some point. That was then. And this right here is now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
A thought from Kimberly, I think, which is really helpful as we round things out, is thank you for sharing about your mom. I've been a caregiver for my mom for over 10 years. We live together. I love
Alicia,
her.
did you freeze on us?
Oh, am I
You
frozen?
may have.
Oh,
So
darn. Oh, darn.
she just is testing me to see whether or not
Am I
I can
back?
read. So let me say,
Am I back?